Hey guys, Seth, Gabe, Drew, and Matt here in the brand new Misfit Athletic studio. Wow. See the beautiful logo? Yeah.
Looks
Welcome
nice
to the Cycle 4 podcast. It does look nice in here, doesn't it?
I feel cleaner in here too.
You feel cleaner?
He doesn't. There's no way.
You
Sherb
personally
feels
feel cleaner? Or
Yeah.
those? Okay.
I got the coffee stand up.
So our new studio will make sure that you're nice and clean before you
stay clean.
Get spit and fire into these new mics that move all over the place for us. It's really awesome. So today we're going to talk about Cycle 4. You've all been waiting for it. Short and abbreviated cycle leading into the Open. But before we get into the nitty gritty, Drew.
SharpenTheAxeCo.com for all your training camp and apparel needs. I'm looking around the room right now, seeing some new stuff. Seth's got that almost Sharpen the Axe nightlife.
I could go out in this.
Exactly.
I will.
Yeah,
You should. I will.
Gabe's got the Misfit Athletics squat team because he's the only one that's standing at this table right now that can actually squat worth a damn.
That's rude.
Sherb's wearing an oldie but a goodie. It's negative 604 degrees in Maine right now, so he's got that heavyweight hood going. And we have the Misfit mark in a new color, black and gray. Have that for the ladies as well. We got some new wristbands. We can't show you I tried to get Sherb to wear the women's Axe muscle tank.
Didn't fit my figure very well, so decided against it.
Also, Open Prep Camp this year is in Iceland, and we still can't say the name of where it is, but it is right outside of Reykjavik, and you have to fly into the Keflavik/Reykjavik airport, so I think you'll find your way if you decide to make the trip. You'll find the gym. It's not far. That's February 9th to the 11th. We are working hard on securing the rest of the year. We should have some announcements here in the next few weeks. We should be going all across the country, all kinds of good spots. So SharpenTheAxeCo.com, new gear, training camp. Gabe, what else we got?
Yeah, we had some changes to the site recently, and so we put the master's programming on the pro tier, and we've noticed a lot more people following that, and that's awesome. That's great. That's good timing to prep for the Open. And then we also created 3 complete tiers to where you can choose whether you want to follow the regular blog, Hatchet, or the master's program, and you get put into a Facebook group. And those are starting to build pretty nicely, and it's a really good time to have somebody to bounce scores off of and ask questions to, and those groups are moderated by Misfit coaches. So.
Do you think people will share their Open scores with each other?
Yeah,
Definitely, they always do. I got 2 rounds.
I actually think they will a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's cool because you get a mix of people from different regions. So some will, a lot won't, but it's worth having some people to a community to bounce some stuff off.
I mean, potentially the biggest change is the week in advance, right? I mean, people are really excited about that. People have been asking us for a long time. We're like, no, we can't give our secrets away. And it's been long enough now that we're like, yep, you can have your week in advance.
That week in advance will it will be modified during the Open, but it'll be really good for
much
people.
Information as
It'll be really good for people to have that information, because people like to freak out. Speaking of freaking out during the Open, we do have some remote coaching availability. And everybody at this table and our other our other remote coaches are experts at dealing with personalities and
experts.
Everything that you're going through during the Open. We've been doing that for years now, and we are pretty good at it. I'd say
we'll continue to do it.
So we do have some spots opening, and you can go to misfitathletics.com/remote coaching, fill out the form, and we'll get you hooked up.
Cool.
We also have affiliate programming, believe it or not. We do have it. We have a lot of affiliates that reach out to me about this time. They know the Open's coming. They want to know, how can I get my gym ready for the Open? These 4 weeks are a great way to do that. No sooner time to jump on board than now for the affiliate programming. All you have to do is go to our website, fill out the application. It'll come to me, and we'll talk, and we'll get you guys squared away. So jump on board.
Wow.
A new cycle.
Wow. Okay.
Is that why we're here?
Believe it or not.
Let's talk about it. So we never know when the Open is going to be announced. We never know what week it's going to start. We do our best to guess, and then we lay out the whole year's schedule, the way we're going to make each cycle fit. And we thought we nailed it, but for me, the Open is a week earlier than I planned. That's okay. But what that means is that there's no test or retest in cycle 4 this year. And there's also no 5-week or 6-week cycle. It's down to 4. So we have 1 month to do some super focused prep for the Open, which makes my job actually really fun because now I could get to give a lot more options to everybody out there as to what to attack and how to attack it. So what you'll find sort of for the first time is that we have the mandatory, non-mandatory pieces, but we also have options within the individual pieces. And we'll explain all that as we get to them. But I think this is actually one of the most fun cycles that I've had to work on in recent memory because of how different I get to make everything. But it's also going to be really focused if you know yourself, know what you need to work on, or you have a coach that can steer you in the right direction, or if you're working with one of us that can steer you in the right direction. We have a clear path that you can take that will get you ready in 4 weeks. And I mean, I think everyone here can attest to how much you can truly get done mentally and physically in 4 weeks when
I like it. I like
right
that
there.
we're asking for that really narrowed focus for this period of time. I think it works out really
I think
well.
doing that for longer than 4 weeks in the past historically has kind of made people go a little stir crazy.
A little crazy.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's 1 month of really dialed in work, and let's get into everything we're going to find. So, Drew, I'm going to let you lead the way with the strength and Olympic lifting. And
So before I get into specifics on strength and Olympic lifting, I think it's important to note for the people who are really serious about that test retest, it's built in really well in the cycle.
Yep.
So it's built in within the very first thing I'm going to talk about with the strength. It's built in with some repeats of, open workouts and all that stuff. So if you're into that, like I really push with my athletes being obsessed with incremental change, like just getting a little bit better at stuff. You have some built-in test retest throughout the whole cycle. And I think if that's the way that you mentally approach stuff, you're good to go there. Another thing that it's good to stand here and make sure that people are informed about the podcast, about the program, what's actually in it, what's going to be in it. They should be ready for it. But this is that time of year where I find that some athletes that are on the bubble obsess over the wrong style of movement. So you get an athlete that's like, I got to get my muscle ups exactly where they need to be. I got to get that 1 rep max snatch down. And then I watch them do box jumps, double unders, wall balls, stuff with the dumbbells, that what makes up almost the entire open, and it's not that efficient.
right.
So if you're a bubble athlete, use this cycle to be obsessed with cleaning up very simple movement. Make it an afterthought. Have somebody actually watch your double unders and say, well, it makes sense you can't do handstand push-ups. Your arms are up here. Whatever it is, be obsessed with that, because if this is your games, don't prepare for regionals. Like, take that full step back and say, okay, we really need to take a strong look at these very simple movements. And then once you get that stuff down, a lot of times GPP just kind of takes over, and then, you're doing better already. So I just wanted to I'm here, I'm standing in front of a microphone, use the opportunity to say, hey, I know we like to obsess over the, sexy movements, but at the end of the day, we got to be really, really good at simple stuff during the open. So, strength work. During cycle 4, we are starting a new style of lifting that we are calling die sets. Die as in D-I-E. You die.
You're going to die.
You're going to die. And I'm going to take this opportunity to explain how it works, but we're also going to shoot a video. I don't want people to be confused, because this, I've tested it out on a lot of movements. It works really well, but the way that it's worded can be a little confusing. So you're essentially on the back squat going to choose a weight that you are positive you can hit for 8 to 15 reps. Maybe in your head say, I know for a fact that I can do this for 10. So would
you shoot for the higher end of 15 or the lower end of 8? Because for a lot of athletes, it's a huge gap. So where do you aim somebody to start?
I think your best bet, what I really like about this, is if you get the right group together, you get the right music on, you get the right feel for a squatting session, you warm up properly. I would love to see athletes hit 20 reps in that first week and show themselves what they're capable of before they move on.
I think it's important they realize
if you
that
hit 8 reps, you did it wrong.
Exactly. That's what I think is important to drive home, because a lot of athletes are super weight obsessed, so they're going to pack on as much weight as they can to squeeze out an 8th rep and say, I did it.
Right.
But that's not the point.
That is not the point. That might happen week 4, but that's because you progressed to that point. You found out, this is how I go through this. This is the speed that I take them. Do I, my fast twitch, do I go all out right at the beginning and then hold on for dear life? Am I slow and steady? Like those videos back, when Alec Smith was doing the Texas method, and you had to set a timer and alarm for when it was going to be over. It was like 3 or 4 minutes, some of the videos he would send for a set. So 8 to 15 reps would be your guess. And you should be able, we just got done with 5 rep max, 5 rep max, 5 rep max. So the math shouldn't be too hard for you, knowing that if I back this down, I know for a fact that I can get into the double digits. But with, Seth asking that question, I would love for people to just die week 1. And with lower body movements, it's really important to understand that you're capable probably of 3 or 4 more reps than you think you are, the way it feels. So much more slow twitch fiber accumulated in your lower body. We walk around on our legs all day. We do rowing and biking and running and stuff like that. We don't get to run on our hands. We don't have a machine, one of those bikes that you like pedal with your arms, that kind of thing. So make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. If you're not, this is one set. Like, this is your whole strength session in one set. You have to treat it that way. So it'd be a detailed explanation on the site and in the video we're going to shoot for you guys on how this works. But essentially, you're going to have, after the warm-up sets that we recommend, you're going to have one set to go all out. And I would love it if you guys overshot and murdered yourself and then sort of figured out how to get more in that 15 rep range as the weeks go on. If you get less than 8 or 8, you did it wrong, go down the next week. If you get over 15, go up and wait the following week. And it really is as simple as that. 8 to 15 reps for our estimate, then go all out with the weight, adjust your weight the following week. Moving on, we have something that seems like it's almost the same thing, very similar. We're going to have front squats later in the week where you guys are going to be doing high rep front squats for time. So an example would be 40 reps for time at 60% rack and unrack at any time. So you can stand there with it. You can put it back in the rack. You can do 10, put it back, 10, put it back, 10, put it back. You can see what you're made of. I would say if you know your strength is either flying through them or going steady, maybe shoot for the opposite. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the law of accommodation. When you decide that you want to attack a weakness, that's how you make it not a weakness. So if you just go with your strength, if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, okay, well, I know for a fact that I can just, do 5/8 pretty comfortably and beat the person that did 30 in a row. Well, they probably got a better stimulus training versus testing, that sort of situation.
No one cares that you won.
Exactly. We have, the deadlift that we just did in cycle 3 was like
death.
Awesome.
Death.
The bang for your buck, though. Like watching it, like we were doing that same cycle in our affiliate classes, watching it, it's like if it wasn't boring for the members, that could be a day.
Oh, yeah.
That could literally be a day. You see a person do one set and like fall over, and you just love to see that kind of thing.
Get the shakes.
All those people that are out there wasting their days, on like an elliptical, and then you see a dude rip out 18 deadlifts. It's like
I'd like 275 for an affiliate member. They didn't even realize what they were capable of until you force them to be in those situations. And then you see guys that you would guess their 1 rep max is like 335 and they pull 275 for 18. You're like, oh shit,
they went
rethink
up,
this.
I had a bunch of people walk up to me and say I went up in weight from my 12s to my 18s.
Yeah.
Like they were like, oh wait, okay. So
if
I move properly and use the fact that I've gotten a little bit stronger. So in that same sort of idea, we have ascending reps throughout both the set and the cycle. And what I mean by that is it starts off with like a 2, 4, 6, 8, and then the next week it would be like 4, 8,
3, 6, 9, 12.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Goes up 1 rep for the opening set each week, and then it just goes up by that number. So if it's 2s, it goes to 4, 6.
Yep.
It's 3s, 3, 6, 9, 4. You get the idea. 4, 8.
So what we're hoping here is that you guys pick a really smart weight to start off with. The weight will go down throughout the sets because the reps are ascending. The weight will be descending. In that as we go up a little bit each week, you guys are using similar weights. That would be the goal. This is non-mandatory, but is very beneficial. And what's great about it is I'm looking at it right now. You're choosing between long bitch work and this. So someone that's really good at mile repeats a lot of the time
loves deadlifts.
We love.
You guys love. Oh, so do I. What do I do if I can't do either? So it's built in there in that I'm assuming it's on purpose, Seth.
Yes.
So that you can choose based on your skills, your skill set. And I think this is going to work really well. You just have to be smart about the weights that you choose, I think week 1. I think week 1 will give you a lot of information and feedback to progress yourself throughout the cycle.
It will, and week 1's real low volume on purpose so people can wrap their head around it.
Right.
The last thing I'll say about the deadlift is throughout the season we've been going back and forth from traditional pulling to sumo, and I prefer that people stick with traditional going into this cycle. However, if deadlift's the sort of thing that gets your back really cranky or you're just a little burned out from the huge sets before, I'm not opposed to somebody making the individual switch to sumo. So
if you're 2 cycles ago and you saw that you like the sumo, it makes sense.
So I prefer traditional because that's what we would likely see coming up. But I do understand that it would be appropriate in many circumstances to switch back to sumo for this cycle to still get the pulling volume in, still build the weight. So it's traditional, but if you need to pull sumo, it's acceptable.
And I think it's important to say that because it's a common scenario that someone that needs to deadlift cannot deadlift.
Yeah.
Those go together a lot of times.
A lot, yeah.
So if I'm trying to get that heavy pull stimulus, I'm trying to work on the midline, trying to work on the posterior chain, but it screws me up all the time. And I know that I can go wider, get my hips a little bit more involved. It kind of makes sense to throw that out there at this point in the season when we're trying to, again, narrow the focus.
Especially if you really don't need that long endurance stuff and you still need to pull, but you're just burned out from deadlifting. Just switch to sumo, adjust the weights accordingly, and get the volume in. So
on the Olympic lifting, we have 2 days a week, 2 different styles that will alternate between the clean and the snatch within the style each week. So week 1, you're looking at something where you're going to go for max rep touch and go sets. Again, narrowed focus, making sure that we are working on what we should be working on. You can choose whether you base your percentage in the movement on the power snatch, the squat snatch, or a mix of both. And I think this example, when I'm looking at it, there's a lot of skill involved with a touch and go, clean and snatch, just in terms of a rhythm. And typically you're going to find an athlete that's either a really good puller that loves that power snatch or power clean, or you're going to find somebody that really likes to kind of fall under the bar. Yeah. That's going to be way more comfortable. And again, those are the scenarios, law of accommodation. Let's flip them upside down and make sure that we're good at the other one. Do not go with the one that you like. Go with the one that you do not like and get better at it. Or if it's one of those things where you're like, oh, well, what if it's both? Go ahead and have a mix of both. The very last piece that we have here is something that we had last year. It's going to be either 1 clean or 1 snatch from the floor, and then a max set of hang above the knee. You get a pretty big chunk of rest in there, so you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, that's good. No, it's not good, because then you're going to be able to do way more reps in the next set, and you're going to be in deep trouble. So obviously we've just gone through these 5 things, and it's that time of year again, gentlemen.
Did you do the snatches last year?
Yes.
How did it go? What was the, if you could give one piece of advice to everybody who, I know that's not your favorite movement necessarily, but
the biggest thing I'd say for someone early on with these movements is stick on the lighter side and work on cycling the barbell. I think that's what the open is. It's learning how to move around a barbell many, many, many times. It's not max lift. So err on the side of 70% rather than 75. Focus on moving well around the barbell. I mean, to me, when I start to slow down and have to really pause in the hang and go to the hang and then do it, it just breaks down. So work on staying smooth through that and see if you can't cycle the barbell a little bit faster rather than being more deliberate through each rep.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And the 70 to 75 is thrown in there because we have such an abbreviated cycle. So traditionally, I would build you up 2.5 to 5% per week each week. We don't have time to build, so you have to be smart and go by kind of feel. So you open at whatever your warm-up set is, and your first set's probably 70, and if you crush 21 snatches, okay, it's probably worth it to add 10, 15, 20 pounds onto it and hit 15 or 12, whatever is the next.
I feel like last year was somewhere between 10 and 15 was kind of what everyone was hitting on this. So like you said, if you go above 15, set her a little heavier. If it's it's 6,
way too heavy. Exactly.
Before moving on, I'll throw one note in there and see if you guys agree with me. The athlete that's worried about that 1 rep coming up, would you advise them to work up to a heavy single as part of their warm-up for the clean and the snatch work?
I think if an athlete has
when I say heavy, I mean 80 to 90, you know what I mean? Go above what you would be going and then go back down, kind of that proprioception set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally good with that as long as people don't abuse it. We've put that in before in the past. Well, when we didn't put it in before, people used the concept and then would try to PR and then go back to hitting sets, and it would just burn them out. They may not feel it that day, but they feel it the last 2 days before rest day. They're like, I'm so beat up, I wonder why. And then when we throw it in there, people are a little more cautious about it and not really building to where they need to be. So a thorough warm-up on a snatch and a clean means that you're working up to percentage weights before you start to get more technical and doing complexes or many sets of touch and go. So yes, a thorough warm-up, heavy single, whatever you want to call it, absolutely appropriate. If you start to abuse it and you start going 90% plus,
going to ruin the stimulus.
So if you ain't past,
expect it to be ruined.
Between 80 and 90, you're good. You don't need to go past that. There's no need to.
No.
How many CrossFit competitions you watch and that person does like 8 snatch pulls at their 1 rep max, and you're just like, why are you still trying? It's not possible anymore. That power output is gone.
Yeah.
So if you're frying your power output and then we're asking for a set at 15,
good luck.
You can guess what's going to happen.
This past cycle, whenever lifting, because I'm that person that you're talking about that struggles with the heavier weights, and some days it carries over to the lighter weight, so it might be a lighter percentage. So the days that I actually did that, warmed up well, went to a heavier, and I gave myself usually 3 lifts, and didn't go, depending on what the percentage was, I went maybe 20 to 30%, more than what I was being asked to lift that day, and that went really far. It made every lift feel really fast, and it actually allowed me to, like on the complexes, it allowed me to move the barbell well and get more out of the training session. So just got to be smart about it.
Another thing I'd say is we've kind of taken out putting mandatory orders in the pieces, the order of the pieces that you hit. But this time of year, I can't think of a reason other than the back squat die sets that you wouldn't do a conditioning piece of some kind first before hitting a lift. Almost every other lift, all the lifts are volume based for the most part. Yeah, they get heavy, but they're volume based. And CrossFitters really need that thorough warm up, all their joints, get their blood pumping, get their heart rate way up and let it come way back down. And they can go really quickly into a lift after we know we can because we're tested on it all the time. So you can continue the training session, do a 10-minute AMRAP, give yourself a couple minutes to come down, and you start picking that barbell up and move it. And that warm-up will be abbreviated, and you will find that you're moving weight better, faster, more efficiently after doing a workout of almost any kind.
I hear from my athletes all the time. They're like, I switched it up today and did a Metcon first, and the lift went way better. Well, imagine that. You warmed up
for a max effort.
I advise that 4 out of 5 athletes.
Whoa. So what you don't want to see is a post of, I did the die sets and I couldn't finish the rest of my training. I didn't get any conditioning in. Yeah.
Good job.
I mean, and you're right, actually. So I excluded the die set at first, but you're right. It's one set. And the warm-up, there's some warm-up sets in there, but you're right. It's one set. If you give yourself enough time after a grueling Metcon to come down, your legs are going to be ready to go again. Right. You don't say that for the last piece.
It's going to be fucked the next day.
Right.
They're not going to be screwed that day.
Right. Exactly.
They're just going to be screwed for your touch and
Tuesday,
go.
Wednesday,
snatches.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's all I got there.
All right. Well, I think I got all my stuff in for strength and Olympic lifting work. Workouts. Workout of the day, Metcon, CrossFit.
The most important part of the cycle. I only say that.
Says you.
I only say that because I get to talk about it.
Die sets, bro.
So welcome to preseason. Essentially, you get to do a lot of CrossFit. As if you weren't doing it before and preparing for this, but now it's that practice for the season. It's the practice for that Metcon, the 1 Metcon a day that you do, and so you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of just open style CrossFit. And for most of you, if this, like Drew said, if this is your CrossFit games, if this is, your goal, you haven't made regionals before and your goal is to break into that top 20 or whatever your region is now, this has got to be a primary focus for your training. So it might be good to do that piece first, and prioritize that piece, the Metcon first each day. We're going to have 4 mandatory Metcons each week.
Bro, you wish. 5.
Sorry, 5.
You wish.
That one's mini.
Every day. Oh, yeah, okay. See.
Every day. CrossFit.
So every day. CrossFit every day. There you go. You get
CrossFit
to practice
every day on a CrossFit functional fitness every day on a functional fitness
Exercise
blog.
I don't feel bad.
So, like I said, most of them are going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about a couple of options that you'll have. So, on one day, you're going to have an option to retest a prior open workout, and those are designed for people who really need to, or who the open is their games.
Yeah, it's the majority of people. Yeah.
And then on that day, you'll have an option if you are a games athlete or you're a high-level regional athlete, you know that you're going to qualify again. Then you have an option to do another Metcon, which will, have a little bit longer, a little more forward thinking.
More likely it's regional retest. So if it's not open retest, it's more likely going to be a regional retest, just to get people that are hopefully they're confident they're getting through to regionals,
definitely
into that mindset. And
just building so that you don't have to cram everything into 5 weeks or whatever.
It's tough making the athletes, even though they know they're going to get through it, not stress and be super focused on the open when it really should be not the primary focus, because they're that fit at this point. But anyway, sorry.
So you'll have that option, and be honest with yourself. I mean, if you've never made regionals before, or you have any question about
there's
it,
there's like 60 people on Earth that can choose that one, and like 10 of them follow the blog. So I'm doing a little statistical math in my head. There's a pretty good chance if you're listening to this, don't do the regionals one.
Pretty much.
And then another specific Metcon that we'll do once per week is multiple AMRAPs with no rest, essentially. And so you'll do rounds of workouts. So maybe you have a couple movements, a couplet or a triplet, and you'll end on a monostructural on a machine, or maybe.
Let's talk about it, because we just tested this.
Yeah.
It was so easy. I loved it.
Why don't you tell us about your experience?
So sure, last place, sure.
Last place, sure.
Lost to Seth by like 30 cows.
Seth's too fit.
You beat him.
You beat me.
You got like 150 calories.
Yeah. He did like 6
literally
pull-ups,
last place.
Squats,
Hold on, I did exactly what you told me to do.
The score was most calories. You got the least calories. The rest of the other details don't matter.
All right, so essentially what we did the other day, we had a 30-minute AMRAP.
Where we did, and he tried to do. Keep going.
Yeah, you didn't do any wall balls, bro. 30-minute AMRAP buy-in with 50 wall balls. Then you went into 30 dumbbell snatches, and then you spent the rest of the time on the machine of your choice.
Right.
Seth picked my machine for me, and he picked the machine he likes best.
Well, that's how
so
it
I got
goes.
stuck on an air runner, and he was running beside me, and I was like huffing and puffing, and he looked like he was relaxed. So that was a hoot. But this style of workout is, just nasty. You have a chance to buy in with something and then see how hard you want to work on that machine. And a lot of times we want to test our fitness. What better way to do it than a machine?
This is so contrary to everything we've talked about leading up to this. So we've always been like, work really hard on the machine, do bitch gymnastics, which we have coming as well, and then see how you do the rest of the movements under fatigue. Well, let's really make you do those movements smooth, efficiently, in big sets, like you should be moving. And then when you're tired, get on that machine and see what you really have left. Like, how good is your aerobic system? Can you really get back on there? And some of it is some of the time left. I mean, we had anywhere from 3 minutes to 90 seconds left each round, right? In a 6-minute window. It dropped. But it was interesting to see how hard we could push right out of the gate coming off big sets versus if we had to really slow down our wall balls or snatches because we're getting tired. How easy was it to get on the runner, or how much more difficult was it, and how fast could you flush all that shit burning in your legs out of there and get back to work?
Pretty sure we went from like 35 calories in that first 6-minute window to like 6 calories in the last one.
In my opinion, it was like the perfect mix of rep accumulation, because like you can't dog the wall balls and the snatches, or else you get zero time.
Right.
And then you are forced to pace or find a pace that will allow you to do 4 more rounds of it.
Yep.
So, like for me, I did the runner as well, and I'm usually pretty good at running, and I got 42 calories in the first round, and that was probably a mistake because by the second round I was hurting on the other movements, and I had to adjust that round 2 and 3 so that I knew I could finish. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it teaches you
a lot about yourself. And, yeah, absolutely.
That's like when you're dealing with pain and suffering at the level that, and I don't even know what you got. I don't even know what they feel.
What's it like, Drew?
What's it like? I mean, I suffer, but I can't go hard enough to know what they're going through.
Right.
When you're going through something like that, you have to be able to come out the other side with new information on how to be better. It can't just be, I hope that was enough to my aerobic system and enough, I tore some muscle tissue and I was going to regrow. Like, you guys have so much data built into something like this. Every single week you can learn something about the movement, something about yourself, something about strategy. This is the time of year where if you're that type of person that's like, oh, I don't write anything down, I don't take any notes, I don't do anything. Like, you're not exempt from that anymore. There's so much built into these pieces that you can learn and
I learned
Take
I'd
it
rather
into the
bike
open.
instead of run. Just gonna throw that out there, but
I think on that note too, we talk a lot across the majority of the year on making your training specific to you, making sure you're getting better. I think there's still an element of that, but if there's ever a time to start really comparing and racing and adding that intensity to try to beat other people at workouts, I mean, it's now, because you're going to be doing that for the next 5 weeks after this cycle. So
get yourself ready
riding
for it.
that. Yeah.
Prepping
So
yourself for this.
when we talk about don't game bitch work or bitch gymnastics early on, just go hard and see what you're made of. Now there's a little element to, like, you should look at this and strategize. Yeah, you got to strategize. You got to take a good approach to the workout, which is a good reason why you should join the complete tier, right? I mean, get that a week ahead of time and plan out your workouts. So
that's right. Yeah, and the rest of the week is basically just your standard open stuff. So that pretty much covers that.
We going over bitch work?
Yeah, why not?
All right.
I'm jumping all over the place. Let's go.
Might as well. We're just talking about bitch work anyways.
Yeah.
So, you guys haven't figured it out yet. Mondays is Metcon Monday. You'll have two CrossFit workouts, or you have a CrossFit workout, you have an interval, and you'll finish it up with some bitch work. Mondays are going to be your traditional bitch work. You're going to see intervals, rowing, running, potentially if you have an air runner, or find a way to run on a track somewhere indoors.
People don't. Yeah, I was gonna say, people don't live in Maine. There's no one here. You guys are fine.
Ski,
Go run.
bike, double
Absolute
unders.
worst case scenario, they can do
burpees.
shuttles, and shuttles get real nasty. So
you're going to see something
be
that
in
to
there.
finish up your Metcon Monday, but that's not the only style of bitch work we have this cycle. We also have multi-machine, which kind of goes back to what we were just talking about with that, like, buy-in and then go to machine and suffer. Now you're going to do some type of bitch work movement, whether that's double unders, whether that's rowing, wall balls, and then going into the machine. Like, how much can you row? How many calories can you get? How far can you get?
What about burpees? We got burpee into a machine?
Burpees.
Oh, baby.
100%.
My favorite.
It's
I'll crush you guys.
It's amazing how much your pace changes on a rower when you have to push on a bike first and then get on a rower. That pace you think you can hold is just nowhere to be found.
I was just going to say, the other day in class, just for fun, we're like, oh, I'll do a little primer for class. We'll do 7 burpees, ski 100, and do 7 more burpees. And literally everyone that finished said, those are the hardest 7 burpees I've ever done in my entire life. And they skied for 20 seconds. So chance to see what it feels like to go from machine to machine, see how well you can recover, and then start to push towards the end of that interval. Still going to have some bitch gymnastics on Wednesdays. Day 3, you're going to see a chance to, grab the bike, then do some handstand push-ups, row, do some chest to bars. You need to have that ability to go from a bitch work movement into the gymnastics. Like always, we practice it all year. Chance to see what you got now. Like Gabe said early on, chance to maybe game it a little bit better, figure out what pace you can go that's still challenging and still going to get you through the piece, but allows you to still maybe hit sets of 5 over and over again. Or
let's talk about that for a second, because that's one of my favorite topics. So instead of crashing and burning on something like handstand push-ups or muscle-ups, let's just come up with an example. Row 500, 15 open style handstand push-ups. So you got to meet the standard. If that's a difficult standard for you, or handstand push-ups are just a weakness, and you have 6 rounds of that, we'll say, how do you go about starting to break up those handstand push-ups early? Do you not? Do you go all in for 15?
You can
and
juxtapose Gabe and I in the same piece. If
Well,
Gabe and
let's do
I
it.
are rowing the 500 and doing the same 15 piece, I really like to do sets of 5 over and over again. And maybe for me, that allows me to stay moving ahead of him in this piece, allows me to beat him in this workout. But if Gabe's someone like, all right, I typically stick with 15s, here's a chance to practice those 5s and get comfortable kicking down and kicking back up so that you don't waste, we always talk about handstand push-ups, time under tension is a huge thing. You don't want to be wasting reps or fighting to meet the standard. So if he learns he can do 5, learns to kick down, kick back up, and then get in that same position, he's going to learn something in these next 4 weeks that allows him to carry it into the open, and all of a sudden he's better at handstand push-ups.
Like you said, I am the type of athlete that goes for a bigger set, and I go, and then all of a sudden they're fine, all of a sudden they're gone. And you cannot afford to do that during the open. If you do that, then you're staring at the wall, you especially when it's a chunk of 50 in a row, you're spending too much time, the clock's running, right? So yeah, you're right. It's something that I should learn to, what is my capacity, and just live right below that capacity, kick down, kick right back up. And again, learning about yourself, writing that stuff down, it's really important. And it's not about accumulation of volume necessarily in that big set. It's about what is going to make you more effective during an open workout.
And if I was coaching you through that, what I would force you to do is commit to sets before you go into it. So if the number's 15, I may say, Gabe, at no point in time are you allowed to get less than 5 in a set. So you can go, you can't even do 6, 5, 4. I don't want to see you finishing with 4. So plan ahead of time. Make sure that you're committing to those sets. Stick with, 10, 5, 10, 5, 10, 5 as many times as you can. As soon as you feel that start to go away, it's 5, 5, 5. You know what I mean?
Right.
Something like that.
Yep.
And I would make you put all your focus onto that part of it, as opposed to worrying about the rower and worrying about the total amount. You only have to worry about the small set you have to do a bunch of times. And that's where your focus should lie in something like this.
I actually put that stipulation on one of my remote coaching athletes on a workout a couple days ago, and comparing his scores to some of the higher level athletes, some of the, regional athletes. He was really close to them, and I forced him to break up. It was the 8 and 8, the power cleans and handstand push-ups. And I forced him to go 4 and 4 on the handstand push-ups.
Yeah.
And his score was usually on a workout like that is like way behind, and he was much closer. So.
And we're at the time of year now where you shouldn't be guessing whether or not you have sets of 4, sets of 5. Hopefully you figured that out through the last 9 to 10 months.
Sure.
That you know what you're capable of. But this is your last tune-up, a chance to try it out, see what you have, so that when you go in the open and you see the 55s come back out, you know that, hey, I have 5 handstand push-ups in the bag all day, every day. I can do that no matter how many times I kick up.
It's still training, though, as well. So people have to remember that, even though we're talking about practicing the sport and doing a little competing against your training partner, it's still training. So knowing that you have 5 or 6 or whatever your max set is, that's great to know, but that doesn't necessarily reflect what you should be doing when you're training. So that's good to know for testing, because then you plan the test. In the training, you may undershoot so that you can be consistent long beyond what a test would ask of you, and then you can hopefully
you don't
more during testing.
You don't want to take this entire cycle and say, I played the sport the entire time and got a little less fit because you didn't push your capacity. You definitely don't want to go that route.
And we've seen
either.
that from athletes in the past. And we've seen
you have to bridge that gap between strengths and weaknesses. You always have to have that in mind. I mean, we're standing next to the open sandbag king of all time. Like, he'll pass you right at the end because he does those sets. So he might be the opposite. He might be in that scenario 11-4, 12-3, something like that, where it's like, let's push this a little bit. If you're always thinking about how can I make this a little bit harder on myself from what my perceived strengths and weaknesses are, I think
it's the best way to train.
I think you're in the right spot.
It's the best way to train.
Yeah.
The only thing I have left, Drew touched on it earlier, was the long bitch work piece that we're going to have on day 5.
Yep.
Chance to do some 2K repeats, mile repeats. Maybe it's bigger sets of double unders or burpees.
Who knows?
Crazy with it, right? So
I have to go look at my notepad. Who knows?
Chance to go longer. We talked about early on those other gymnastics, or the other bitch gymnastics piece and the other multi-machine things. You want to see how good your aerobic system is, and that comes back up in those AMRAPs too. So we want to make sure we're not neglecting that throughout the cycle. So we have 1 day a week where you get a chance to get a little more volume. It's on day 5. It's before your rest day, so a chance to get some work in.
It's on day 5 on purpose.
If you can't get the pump out during Metcons, I mean, this is for you.
Yep.
If you're that athlete that's like, man, I know I could do more right now, but I just can't get this poison out of my legs, my arms, my midline, whatever it is.
One thing you joked about too with maybe the new Concept 2 bike or some of the other machines, that you never know if one day in regionals down the road you have to have that ability to go long at regionals, which we still haven't seen. So it's good to have that still trained.
The year that they invite them down for Thursday and don't care about the spectator side, and they bike a 50K. I don't really know what biking distances would be.
Pretty bad.
I'm waiting.
You want to see the prize is only going up, so they're going to just have to keep making the tests.
Yeah, and I understand the spectator part, and I understand CrossFit is GPP, and I understand that the people who kick everybody's ass at the games also kick everybody's ass at regionals. But those spots 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
20 to 40 may not be there after Thursday if you give them a 50K bike.
Well, I want to be honest too. 2013 when they did the half marathon row, I mean, they made that exciting to watch. So you can make that thing. I enjoyed that. Cool. It was cool to see those athletes do that thing. So I mean, I'm all for the longer aerobic test.
I know you're listening, Dave. I know you love this podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
Favorite. It's your favorite,
yeah.
And we want to see it. So change all your plans.
Anyways, moving on. Seth, you going to do the accessory work?
I'm gonna jump in intervals first. Okay. There's really nothing crazy to report here.
CrossFit rest.
For the most part, nothing that people haven't seen throughout the entire season. The one specific note I can give people is that in the past I've done like multiple AMRAPs where you'd have 3 minutes of work and a certain couplet or triplet, 3 minutes rest, and you go back into that. We'll be mixing the couplets and triplets up. So you may do a couplet for 5 minutes, take a rest, do a triplet for 4 minutes, take a rest. So there'll be just kind of a mash of things one of the days that will just kind of keep you guessing. And the rest of the intervals will be fairly traditional from what you've seen from us. That's all I'm going to report there. There's nothing really else to talk about. Before we give you guys a reminder about how we do warm-ups. Before we get there, we'll talk about the extra pieces. A couple things. Most of this is not mandatory, and most of these things, honestly, probably won't be done by the majority. It's okay. The focus should not be here. It should be elsewhere. But once in a while, you may find that one of these really hits you where you need to work on that weakness, and so it may be appropriate to plug this in. It's called extra instead of accessory because it's what it is. It's extra. It's something, if you really need it, it's there. More often than not, you won't need it. One of the things we're going to do are gymnastic sets. That'll be the only mandatory part of it. Gymnastics as in things we expect to see in the open. Toes to bar, chest to bar, handstand push-ups, maybe even push-ups, maybe muscle-ups, things like that. Yeah, bar muscle-ups. So things that we really find to be fair game in the open, we'll have you do. Just work on nice, clean sets, consistency, volume, things like that. The other 3 days, we'll have things like unbroken barbell sets, maybe more uncommon movements. Like last year, we did something like this with sumo deadlift high pulls. We made people pull 30, 40 reps in a row for a couple sets to really see, and then and really see how that feels. Well, what does that really affect? How does that really mess up your posterior chain when you get in a volume like that? And what can you really do at different weights? Regionals gymnastics movements will be in there again for those who really expect to get through the open. This is where you're going to find your legless rope climbs, your pegboard, your strict muscle ups, things like that. And then odd object work. Still going to sprinkle in some sandbag stuff, but more often than not, it's not in the traditional WOD because we're just not going to see sandbags in the open yet. But we will plan on seeing them everywhere else. So you got to keep practicing those. Some strongman stuff might get sprinkled in. Nothing you haven't done this year, but just trying to stay consistent with those sort of movements.
I want to make a plea to you guys. You see how it says extra. You already said it's extra. Please, please, please. This is the time of year where we're trying to ramp up the intensity. If you are throwing too many pieces in, you're wasting your time. If you want to get the bang for your buck, hit the Metcon hard and then maybe the lift and call it a day, right? Too often people see like, I don't want to get left behind. I got to hit every single piece. But this is the time of year. That's
extend that out to the
ready.
Choices, though.
Yeah.
I mean, with this many choices in this time of year, you got to be really, really honest with yourself throughout the whole thing.
Yep.
You have to.
I mean, 9 out of 10 people look at this thing and they're like, I want to hit the strength or I want to hit the interval. Like, and then, I just got to hit the CrossFit WOD hard and then see how I feel at that point.
And not to do another plug like Gabe did earlier, but I'm going to. If you have the complete tier, you'll get to see this laid out for you a week ahead of time. You'll get to choose your options.
Puzzle makes so much more sense when you're looking at it in that view.
And sometimes you just need to consult with somebody else. Should I do this or that? And usually your training partner, your coach has an immediate answer because they know what you need to work on. Athletes tend not to be quite so honest with themselves. And it's no fault of their own. It's just human nature. Yeah, it's just the way it is. So that's the best advice that I can offer there. Quick reminder, either one of you guys want to talk about the way we do warm-ups real quick?
So for the days after your rest day, days 1 and days 4, you're going to see a primer, right? We have some...
I didn't even do that on purpose, but good.
But it's just the way I just noticed that,
Nice
so
job.
Day 1, day 4, you're going to have a primer. That's going to be super crucial on Metcon Monday. You'll see that when we get into the open season, that before every single CrossFit open workout, we will do a primer.
You use bitch work as your warm-up. I'm going to come to your house while you're sleeping.
So
and all of us are, and we're going to put the quarters in the sock.
Kibosh.
Yeah.
That makes Metcon Monday actually 4 conditioning pieces.
It does,
but primer.
We want to make sure, we talk about this all the time. We want to make sure that when you guys get into that CrossFit workout on Metcon, into that first piece, that you've spiked your heart rate, you've got the blood pumping, the muscles are ready to go.
Yes.
You didn't get into it and try to use the first round of that Metcon to get yourself ready and going. You don't want that heart rate spike to start in the beginning.
Rich Fronin don't warm up.
Sure so when I do this
drink milk and
eat PB&J out of a bowl.
When I do this primer, is that the first thing I do when I walk in the gym?
No, warm up, get yourself loose. But before you do your Metcon, hit the primer, hit it hard. You're looking at something that's going to take you somewhere between 2 and 4
doing
minutes.
The primer in my boots, and jeans,
coming in the gym in the lobby. Yeah, but come in, it's 2 to 4 minutes. Hit it hard. Don't waste your time by just going through the motion there. If you don't hit the primer hard, you're not doing it. You're not doing it right.
You ain't doing it.
You ain't doing it. Anyways. And then on days 2 and 5, we have weakness warm-up. Like Seth said before, we want to make sure that we're hitting some longer pieces, even though we're trying to keep the intensity high. It's a chance to get some additional, aerobic volume in without really beating yourself up too bad.
How many burpees is it this year? I know people are going to ask.
It's going to be short.
350.
Like 250?
No, it's going to be
600 burpees.
It's going to be very reasonable. It's more about consistency and volume and just stop, worrying about things like rowing and burpees. Just get on there and be like, oh, it's not that bad.
Those type of pieces are great because you figure out what your like sustainable pace is when you're trying to get through a few rounds of this, and you can figure out, all right, what's my kick at the end? What kind of kick do I have on either the rower or the bike or the burpees?
What did we do last year? Was it 100?
I think it was 100.
Yeah.
Every training camp walked into, hey, how do you, what are you, 100 burpees that's a warm up? Yeah,
dick.
It is. Why? Because we fucking said it was.
Yeah. It's more like 50 this year.
And then the last thing,
I don't regret it.
Day 3 rep accumulation. We want to get you guys comfortable. Probably do some handstand walks, some other weird things you might see in there. The chance to just practice it. Maybe some thrusters in sets of 15 or 20, so that you see them in the open, you're not ready for them. But just a chance to get some extra reps in. That's a little bit lower intensity, but a chance to work on bigger sets. So
the warm ups are an awesome place, essentially, other than the primer, to personalize a little bit too.
Yep.
So we've been asked, please put the warm ups in. I'm not going to do them. If you don't, that's fine. If you're like, I go to the blog, you say to do it.
You're saying I'm not going to do them even if you put them on the blog.
I do
Some
not
people do
say
that too.
Rep accumulation is the one that comes to mind first. If you're, there's sets of 15 wall balls in there, and you're like, wall balls are a joke for me, and you're like, you know what, I hate thrusters or whatever. Put those in. You're not, it's nothing crazy to do that. And then if you're looking at it and you notice a pattern and you're like, man, the running or biking isn't coming up in the weakness warm up as much, and I suck at that stuff. A lot of times the machine is either you have to throw your body weight around or the machine will hold it for you. And that's where you find the big guys or the little guys, it's vice versa there. So if it's like move your body weight and you're like, oh, that's what I'm really good at, maybe you do hop on a bike or a rower instead, something like that.
So, chance to hit all 3 styles of our warm-up and, don't miss out.
Nice finish. That's cycle 4.
I got one more thing.
Okay.
We spend 20 plus hours outside of the gym. It's coming up to that time of year where it's so incredibly important to be serious about your life outside of the gym if you're trying to be a professional athlete. We started a completely separate podcast and project for this called the Misfit Project. So if you guys are looking for a mental edge, recovery edge, there's all kinds of stuff built into it, and it's meant to be what happens when we're outside of the gym for the most part. So if you guys are looking to check that out, you can just search for it, on iTunes, the Misfit Project, Instagram at the misfit.project, misfitproject.com. There's a bunch of different places to find us, but if you're looking for that sort of edge outside of the gym, that's where we've taken that as a completely separate project to give you guys as much information as we can.
Very cool.
You good?
I'm good.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for that, Drew. I
very cool.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So good. Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from all of you before the open. So
don't forget to follow,
Good luck, guys.
subscribe.
Yeah, go ahead and
stuff.
follow and okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Find us.
See ya.